Jordan, welcome to the podcast. We're already starting off to a really strong start. I love you already. We're having a lot of fun conversation about, entrepreneurial ADD and how as creators, we can do whatever we want because as consumers, everybody's too crazy out there consuming 8 million different things a day anyway. They're not paying as much attention as you think, which I think is a really great, great stance and perspective to have, right?
It is. Like, I think, yeah, we think, oh, they're watching my every move. It's like, when I used to do launches, like really big launches. And it was just like, okay, you have to create this like big, reverberating noise about your thing because, you know, you think you send enough emails and maybe you're sending like three a week and like still somebody or multiple somebodies will come in your inbox and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't hear about it. Like I totally missed it. Like what? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I literally have said it so many times in so many places, right? So, people are busy. People have a lot going on, especially, this year. It's just there's so much happening that again, if you're having fun in your business, if the energy behind whatever you're doing is fun and joyful and light, people are going to gravitate toward it naturally just
Mhm.
because of how hard and deep and all these things that are going on. So have some fun, y'all. Have
Yeah.
some fun.
Seriously, if not, then what's the point, right? Like you're always going to make money, so you might as well have fun doing it. And
Exactly.
I think that the money follows the fun. It follows the good energy and
Yes.
the good vibes. And I think the more we try to perfect it, I'm admittedly, I play in both playgrounds where sometimes, like right now, I'm in a season of maybe a little bit of perfectionism because there's fear with launching something, right? Because it means so much to me. And then there's also the part of me that's like, for the last several years, I have sold, I don't even know how many things. And I just throw it out there because I'm excited about it. Somebody inevitably buys it or joins or does something with me and I have a great time. We learn, we do something cool, and then we move on to the next thing. So I believe in both camps. I think there's a time and a place for them. But we just jumped right in, which I love. I think those are really fun interviews to listen to when it's not so formal. I know we
Totally.
sometimes have a little bit of both here on the show. But let's rewind a little bit, give everybody a
Yes.
little, insight into who you are and why we're even having this conversation today. So, welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I just like opened your front door and was like, "Hi, like I'm just gonna get me some chips and dip. I'll meet you on the couch."
That's what it
Sort of
should feel
vibes.
like. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Happy to have you here.
I am Jordan Gill, and I'm the founder of Systems Saved Me. Been in business since 2016, so been around for a while. I've actually been in the online space since 2014, which is even so wild to think about what it looked like then and now what it
Hmm.
looks like. It's night and day and it's awesome. And I have dibble dabbled in lots of things. Many know me for VIP days, which are where you're able to condense, maybe a project or a retainer into a 1 day offer for somebody and get premium pricing for it. So I did a lot of focus on that. I delivered VIP days myself for 4 years, and then I had about a 3 year stint of like purely VIP days as far as helping others create and deliver them.
Hmm.
And then I had a moment that was what it was like pitchfork moments, I guess, where it's like, okay, I could keep going down this path, and here's the steps that I would have to take to do that, and the steps where I would have to rebuild my coaching team essentially, or I could just be done.
Hmm.
And there was nothing I wanted to do less than rebuild my coaching team. And not because I didn't like my coaches, not because of anything. It just in that moment I had already trained about 9 coaches in 3 years. And that takes a lot of energy because I care and I want them to deliver at a level of excellence that I expect.
Hmm.
And for a variety of reasons, coaches come and go. And I just was like, I don't like this revolving door. And so could I get better at this? Sure. But I don't want to. So
Hmm.
at that point, I had to shut things down. And so that was 12 team members I no longer had. That was a program that was the majority of my revenue. And yeah, I was like, okay,
Wow.
well, we're back at the beginning. And so I have tried a lot of things, played, had fun, and for a couple years, and now coming into a lane of micro tools, which I'm sure we'll touch on and get into. But what I want people to understand about my journey is just one, there are so many ways that you can win at business. Okay. Like there's so many ways that you can make money, so many ways that you can deliver amazing results to people. And it doesn't have to look how you always see it look. And then two, that, if there are things in your life that can feel like constraints to your success, like for example, I have 3 chronic illnesses that affect me every single day, what I eat, my energy levels, all the things. And so I can't just work and work and work endless amounts. And so, because I'll get sick. So I have to get really creative. And why it's called System Save Me is because systems are so important and crucial to how I operate, because without them, who knows what kind of craziness will be going on over here. So if you have those certain constraints, whether it's caregiving, whether it's your own chronic illness, a family member's health, different things going on that reduce, your ability to work, there's still opportunity for you to have a great business that supports your life, that prioritizes your life. So those are 2 things that, as people hear my journey, I hope that those are 2 things that they take away.
Yeah. Well, because we know we've been part of this long enough. And I know it's weird to say, like, 2014 was 11 years ago. What in the world? Feels like yesterday, but also feels like we've been on a ride, right? It's been a journey. We've had so many. Oh, I was just interviewing someone else who's been blogging since 2009. And it's like, yeah, we are in a totally different landscape than we were back then.
Yes.
But I think along with that, there's been this super spike into hustle and just seeing how much you can put out and trying to make a name for yourself. And then these deep dives into just crash and burns. I know we've seen a lot of creators go through that. And I think sustainability really is the key to success. And so I love that you're able to draw on personal experience where you literally have to have systems, or else there may not be a business. There may not be a Jordan that's even able to show up and share anything.
Yeah.
And showcase and give tools to make that happen. Because I've homeschooled for 5 years. I don't homeschool right now at this season of my life, but it's been essential for me to have time saving things, not just because I want to have more time to play and travel, but just to live and be a well-rounded human being.
Exactly. That part. Like, I think it's awesome if you want to do those like backpacking in the Himalayas and Bali retreats and stuff, by all means. I think that my specialty is helping people who on the daily need to save time. Like there is, and it's not just, to sit and eat bonbons. It's because you like are homeschooling, or you have a pregnancy that's going to take a lot of your energy, and postpartum and all those things, or you're moving cross country. Just life is happening. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you plan it, sometimes you do not plan it. Right. And so I need a pretty agile business to deal with the ever moving life that I live. So I love that you brought up the homeschooling stuff too, because it's like you shouldn't have to choose, in my opinion, between homeschooling and providing or having some sort of ambition. I think that you absolutely can have both. So I love that you shared that too. A lot of people are homeschooling now. I'm talking to a lot of people.
They are. There's a lot more that I think are wanting to have a little bit more influence over their children and making sure that they can keep them safe. Like there's so many different reasons, and we're in a little break season where I didn't think that I would ever stop homeschooling, and we're taking a little gap year so that mom can regulate herself and go out of fight or flight mode that I've been in. I feel like just very reactive homeschooling into more intentional education, intentional living. But overall, I have a huge testimony of it, and I think more than that, just a huge belief that we really should be able to choose, and that our lives should be lived totally on purpose, right? It should not be reactive. It shouldn't be that you're implementing systems. I'm curious if you've run into this. Do a lot of people who have come to you and they're at that point where they want either VIP days, they want some of the systems you offer, are they already at burnout? Are they aware of the fact that they need these so that they do not hit burnout?
I would say most people are probably on the edge or the cusp, or something unplanned happened where, we just got a diagnosis of a family member and they're about to move in, and I'm going to need to give them shots. I'm going to need to be available for appointments. How do we navigate this shift? So that's usually where people come to me, is when it's like a life thing that's forcing an adjustment on their business. And again, I think sometimes, in the online space, it's very easy, right? Like you can look at my Instagram and just be like, she is frolicking and doing all sorts of random shenanigans all the time, which is accurate. Um, but also, I am living a life. Like I do have a community, I have my family, and things that are important to me, and things that are happening at any given time. And so, even the last like 6 months, I had two of my last grandparents pass away. And
I'm
so
sorry.
yeah, thank you. And, I didn't know how that was going to affect me in business. And it has its ebbs and flows, and grief is such an interesting experience. But you have to think about, okay, you know, just because things happen in life doesn't mean that life stops, right? It would be
Hmm.
nice if we could just like halt for a second and let me readjust. You talk about fight or flight and like nervous system regulation, like all of those things, it's like sometimes we get that where we can't halt, and like it, I see people take these sabbaticals and all of that stuff, and that is amazing and not realistic for all of us. And
Yeah.
so, how do we still create results and have impact in our businesses, but also have the time and space for us to be human and manage the things that are going on in our lives, and again, not have them compete, but how do we kind of create a sort of harmony as much as we can,
Mm.
to be able to move forward and not feel like, okay, the options are totally stop, or just like basically end up stopping because you're going to burn out anyway because you're pretending like everything's fine when it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, hopefully, I think on podcasts like this, where you have a lot of people who have walked the walk for a long time, one of my goals is to make sure that we are helping people avoid some of the pitfalls that are inevitably going to be a part of entrepreneurship, right?
Oh yes.
Some people just want to learn it the hard way. But one of those things
Right.
really is for me is like, let's not get to that point. Let's really build
Yeah.
smart from the very beginning. So, have you kind of shifted into that where you can see, or what would you recommend to a beginner that they
Hmm.
incorporate now so they don't even get there?
Yeah. Self-awareness, number one. So what is going to help me function and be the best that I can be, maybe different from somebody else? An example of that is I have a house manager. I'm very upfront about that because, again, with my energy levels and lack thereof, I can't like keep up with laundry and meal prep and healthy food and all these things and run the business that I run. So I've had a house manager for 3 years. It will have been 3 years this month. And so she does all of that stuff. She does laundry. She does taking the kiddo to school in the mornings. She does meal prep, grocery stuff. She actually just cleaned out the pantry because it was driving me crazy the other day. So I have a lot more help in life stuff because I am more lit up and feel better doing stuff in business.
Hmm.
Some people may be opposite, where again, they would rather outsource a lot of stuff in their business and be okay with doing laundry or whatever the case is. And so
Yeah.
know yourself and know where you want your systems to be, whether that is a system of hiring or automation or things like that. Again, I lean more heavily on system, like tool software automation than I do people in my business now. And so I'm thinking about, okay, how do I, again, maintain the same experience for everyone involved from, in my business without it being me? Because honestly, if things rely on me, it's like not, it's not going to go well. Not in the sense of like, again, with VIP days, you get me for 6 hours and I can be on it. But anything that's like ongoing, that's really hard for me. And
Hmm.
so I try to find those things that work best for how I operate, which is I work in spurts and not in marathons. But I know other people who are like, I'd rather do a little bit every day than do a big batch. And I'm the opposite. So knowing that about yourself is like, okay, if I know that, if I want to do a little bit every day versus a batch, how do I create my tasks? How do I look at the systems that I want to set up for that? That's like step number one always is self-awareness. Neither is right or wrong. It's just what it is. And like, don't lie to
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep.
Like, and then secondly, something that still to this day is funny that I feel like I have to say this, but like the one, like if there's any tool that I'm like, please everybody get is a calendar scheduler. 0.000% of people enjoy going back and forth to find a time to work with you, to get on a podcast, to speak, to do anything. I just have a rule. Like, if you don't send me a link to schedule, like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm actually boycotting what's happening. So that is something that I think there's no lack of personal touch there. I think people think, oh, it's not a human, and they want to, no, they don't. They just want to find a time so that they can actually accomplish the thing that you're trying to accomplish together. Yeah. So that's like universally, if you're a beginner, I know some people who've been in business for 20 years, get you a calendar scheduler for all of your meetings, whether it's 30 minutes, 60 minutes, podcast interview, guest experting, whatever it is. And just have them all set. So that way you can just send somebody a link, they book it, and everybody can move on and show up prepared, and time zones are calculated and all the things. So that's my number one thing. And still people just say like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been saying this since 2016, right?
Yeah. That blows my mind that you would not. I think I've out of complete like it's been essential for my business to have a calendar schedule. And when people are like, oh, tell me what dates work for you, I'm like, that's cute that you think I have any clue. Like,
it's so cute.
I have Google Calendar and that will tell you, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing next Tuesday at 3:00. Like, I can't tell you. So, yeah. and there's so much more room for error too, when you're not relying on those systems to help fill in the gaps, because I have 3 kids. Like, there's a lot happening at any given time. My notes app is overflowing. I'm using Notion now. Like, I'm well on my way to developing a more systematized life. But for so long, I had such an ego with, oh, I can keep it all in my head. I can keep track of it. I'll remember. Paper planners that never get used, 1 page filled in. But yeah, that's such a basic thing that I think everybody should definitely be using. Even if you're not doing something like this, a podcast, just blocking out those conversations so that they're intentional too. And you're not feeling like rushed and you're trying to fit a conversation in the cracks or, it's just so ludicrous to me. I can't even fathom not having something as simple as that.
We're out there, somebody's listening, and I'm talking to you. We are talking to you.
We are.
Get you a calendar scheduler.
Yeah. And I loved what you said too, to know yourself. I think that's something that I struggle a little bit with, where I've tried both. I've outsourced the business things so that I can focus more at home. And then I've outsourced more of the home things so I can focus on the business. And I think it changes season by season, right? Like where I'm at, there's some times where I'm like, I don't really even want to have to do much in the business. I just want to be with my kids. I want more travel. I want more freedom. And then there's other times where I'm like, can somebody else come and teach them math so that I can just go play with Excel spreadsheets in my business?
Don't even get me started on the new math that's going on right now. I have my husband doing it.
Yep. I know. Again, another reason that we've homeschooled for a while. And thankfully where they're at in school, they're not doing some of that madness. They're doing some very like traditional. But yeah, I think that's so important, because you can make yourself very miserable hearing an expert say, oh, develop systems. During this whole like hustle culture rage, especially with MLMs, you have these women being told, just hire a nanny, feed your kids SpaghettiOs so that you can work your business. And I think some of them were miserable because they didn't want to be career women. They just wanted a side hustle so they could be mom. And you were literally dividing, like that show Severance. Like, you were separating them and forcing them to leave this part behind that actually fulfilled them the most, right?
Yes.
So that's really important.
It is. I think that the whole notion around, like, again, there's rhetoric around just like 6 figures isn't enough and you have to go for 7 and you have to go to 8 if you want to do that, amazing. Amazing. It's absolutely possible. You can do it. Again, if I can do it somehow, you could do it. And if you just want to be able to have some extra income to be able to cover things that you want it to cover, because let's be honest, groceries are expensive as heck. And maybe you want to make sure you go to vacation every year. Also amazing. Also incredible. Like, too often we get wrapped up in, and I hear it all the time, in like comparisonitis of just like looking at other people doing what they want to do for their lives that have nothing to do with ours. And then somehow we take that on and say, oh, we must want that too. And it's like, do I actually want that? And if you do, cool, but also if it isn't that way, then that's also cool. Like I, come to grips again. I know with VIP days, I have like the villain of monthly retainers. Do I actually hate monthly retainers? No, I don't care if you do monthly retainers. For me, I cannot do monthly retainers. And so I'm speaking from my own rhetoric because I know there's other people who need to hear from me that it's okay to not do monthly retainers. Um, and if you want to do monthly retainers, awesome, amazing, do that. And I think we need to take a little bit more advocacy in our businesses and how we operate because even I went to a retreat, I get mad seasick. I cannot be on boats. It's so unfortunate. And I was in a retreat and there was an activity on a boat and I had to opt out of it because I know myself and I know if I get on the boat, the entire rest of the retreat is going to be me and the toilet, right? So I opted out. I did a spa day to myself, and then I came back refreshed as a daisy. And some people came off the boat and they got seasick because they were not as aware of like how it was going to react for them. And they were like, oh, I didn't even know that I could opt out. And I'm like, you can always opt out. Like you have to think about what is best for you. Like sit there for 5 seconds and say, man, I do kind of get like a little shifty with this and that. So maybe I shouldn't go on the boat. And, I made sure that the host of the thing like didn't feel offended that I didn't want to go. It has nothing to do. I'm sure it's spectacular. This is for me. And this is so I can be great the rest of the time with everybody. And so advocacy for yourself on behalf of yourself and what you truly need, want, desire is hands down the thing that I think has protected me in a lot of ways in this industry. Because I wouldn't say that I've made a ton of like extremely large mistakes, so to speak, in that sense, because I've always tuned in to myself and made sure that it was aligned with what I wanted and needed and desired at that time. So
Yeah.
I'm very big on that.
Well, and I guarantee from the outside looking in that that is a huge foundational reason that you're an innovator in business. Like I would honestly consider you to be an innovator because you'll share things. I'm on Jordan's email list, you guys. I'm a follower. I've done VIP days, super fan. And I see you sharing things and I'm like, you're on the next flight and I'm still like over here. What are you doing, Jordan? But I think that comes from a sense of knowing yourself and getting really curious in the space that you can create from instead of following the crowd. Like we need people who are just going to sit back and say, that doesn't really work for me. Let me find what does. So can you share a little bit about what you've done since you kind of put the pause button on VIP days? I know you still offer them and everything, but what have the last few years looked like and what are you sharing now?
Totally. So thank you. My favorite compliment is when people say that I'm innovative. So thank you so much. You just made my day/week. And something that I've done is I have started shifting who I'm listening to, not because who I was listening to was bad, but because it was just a regurgitation. And if I start to feel like I'm on this like loop, right? It's like Severance where it's like, okay, literally I'm living the same day and I'm not sleeping. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And it feels like I'm just in this weird matrix. So I just really branched out and I actually landed in like no code, like app creation. It also happened to be kind of coinciding with AI happening, which I do dabble in, but I would say I'm more on the side of like tool software than I am AI. I do like AI, but I'm kind of in a little bit of a different realm. And so I'm listening to people that are very different than who my entire audience and community are listening to. And so that allows me to have a fresh perspective on bridging the gap between what I'm listening to and being inquisitive about and what my community needs are. And so that's where I hear people saying, oh, I just wish that I could like download my followers and be able to follow up with them. I'm then listening to a podcast on how you can build tools to be able to do that and like scrape that data. So I'm like, well, why don't I just build that? And so I did. And then people bought it because they're like, oh my gosh, like you've solved my problem in a tool, right? And so I think a lot of times if you've been listening to the same people, and it's not that, because there's people that I've listened to from jump, namely Pat Flynn, namely, I really do like Ramit Sethi, who he's evolved in so many ways, and Pat Flynn as well. And so I do have those, Sarah Blakely I like following. You have those people that you always will kind of like be curious because they are very innovative. And so I like to follow whatever their journey is. But if you're just kind of like hip hopping a few people that are just kind of, again, you start to see, okay, they're literally just saying the same thing on loops.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try other things, podcasts, books, whatever your fancy is, YouTube, getting out of the typical spaces that you're in. Because two, I would say, and this is like one that not people hate me for, but just like they have a lot of resistance to it. And that is to go and get in the rooms. Because if you think you can be innovative by just seeing the Instagram post that the entire world is seeing, you're wrong. And you need to get into the rooms of people because they're saying things that they're not saying online.
Yeah.
They're having different conversations. They're pointing out different things. And there's just a lot more openness, oddly enough, when you're in the room with somebody over dinner, over, in between sessions or whatever the case is. And I would say that something that has definitely helped me to stay innovative is I'm having a lot of those conversations. I'm in a lot of those rooms. And I don't mean you have to pay $10,000, $50,000 to be in these rooms. I'm just talking like regular events. And just being in those rooms because those connections are going to be deeper. And again, those conversations are not happening online. Like you can't, there's just not happening. And so everybody who's just relying on Instagram or Facebook or podcasts even, like you're hearing a lot of the information that everybody else is hearing. And so how do you get different information? You have to go somewhere else. And events are somewhere that, some people, I wouldn't say I have social anxiety. I think, I don't know, COVID kind of like threw me for a loop a little bit because I got really used to like being by myself. And then, so I had to like readjust a little bit. Now I feel like I'm back. But if you have social anxiety or if you have things that, again, make it tough to go to events, I completely understand that. And I'm not saying push yourself out of, oblivion. But if you can make events happen, and that's something that is really important to you, is to hear different things than you're hearing, events are the number one thing to do that. And, so I'm actually speaking at like 8 events this year, which is kind of wild. And I have a couple additional ones that I'm going to, but events are just like, if someone were to be like, okay, what's one thing, if you had to continue doing it and you had to let everything else go, I would say I would go to events and I would let everything else go. And my business probably would remain this exact same.
It's just funny how we come back to the root of that, right? Like social media has felt like it could replace good old fashioned networking and in-person conversation. And it just never will. Like we love AI. We love all these tools. They're so powerful at helping us to scale and do things. And there's nothing that replaces human connection, conversation. I've learned so much at masterminds and different retreats. And it's the side conversations. It's not even just the hearing the keynote or hearing the presentation. It's the stuff when people have their guard let down and they don't feel like they're having to be something and maintain an image, and they're just sharing. They're just having conversation. And you're just getting a little insight into, oh my gosh, you think differently than me, or you've built that way and I never would have thought to do that. I think even just going back a few steps in this, what you just shared, being brave enough or being aware enough that maybe you're sitting in that vacuum even with what you're consuming. I feel like for me that was I've experienced that in a way where I was kind of part of this. Do you remember Periscope back in the day, like live stream through Twitter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was part of this community, and it was a lot of women that were coming together and they were talking about Instagram and how to grow and how to get more followers and what you should charge for brand deals and things like that. And I was over here like, I'm part of this like entrepreneurial community talking about Amazon and different ways to monetize. And it was because I was able to bridge that gap and I was part of different conversations that I then built trust and connection over here. And I was teaching things that, were blowing their minds. And I'm like, all you have to do is go watch that person's Periscope because they're teaching it, but sure, I'll be the connector piece. So I think I think there's power in being aware that there's always more to learn from other people and putting yourself in the right places where you can do that. Because I think it's easy to get to a point where, whether it's ego or just burnout, being tired from doing so much in business, you can literally feel like, oh, I've learned all there is to learn. Like, how much more could there be? But people are the best teachers, and those conversations can be powerful and totally move the needle forward. So I love that advice. It's so good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's again, it's not the people want me to just tell them some sort of automated magical unicorn way. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know if I would share that if I had it, but like it is the people. It is the people
Hmm.
hands down. And every success that I've had in my business, I can point back to a relationship that was started.
Hmm.
And that's just how it's been.
Yeah. How do you recommend getting? I mean, I know you said you can attend events. It doesn't even have to be the really expensive ones, but for our listeners, how would you recommend somebody starting to get into those rooms? And how do they even know where to begin with spending their time, their money if they're going to travel to places? Like, how do you vet events to know which ones are going to be the most beneficial for you to go to?
Knowing your goal for the event. So some events for me are lead generating. So knowing that again, I may not know a ton of like peer people, but I do know people that I help, which generally tend to be people who are not at the beginning stages of their business, but have gotten their feet wet a little bit and know what they like and don't like and want to like hone it in. And so I will go to events knowing that like my lead, like the people in the audience are great clients or great students for me. And so I don't treat them any differently than I would my peers or people of other goals that I have. But I just have a different understanding of where the conversation could go. I'm not selling them directly. I'm not being like a weirdo shelling out, business cards. But I know how to talk about their problems and what they're going through in a different way than I would a peer or somebody who is further in business than me.
Yeah.
And so some events are lead generating. So if you're wanting to go to events and you want to find clients, you want to find those sorts of things, then again, being the only in the room is going to be most important. So I did that when I was doing systems VIP days. Early on in my business, I would go to like business coach events. I would go to website designer events because those are my clients. And I knew I'd be the only systems person in the room. So I can talk to a few people and they're going to talk to a few people. And then what's going to happen is I become the only systems person. And so literally everybody just is like, if they hear the word systems, oh, Jordan, like, do you see her? She's in the pink dress over there. Like, go talk to her.
Hmm.
Right. And so it made it really easy. Don't go into a room full of systems people expecting leads, right? And you can get referral partners and stuff like that, but just know who is in the room. And then secondly, too, I will go to events specifically for I know there's going to be other collaborators who are going to be there, people who may have communities that I want to be a part of, or want to speak in front of, or etc. And so I will go in again with a different mindset or a different level of understanding of what their needs will be. And then I also will go if to events knowing that I want to like start the relationship with the person whose event it is. And so that one, it's not like I go to events a lot for that reason, but there definitely are events that are kind of seed planter events to
Yeah.
where they see that I've invested in being in the room with them. And that makes a big difference as an event host myself. That makes a big difference when you're looking at people to have on your stage. It is very, very hard for somebody to pitch for an application who you do not know and have never like met and connected with that then you'll put on your stage, because that's a huge, like when you have speakers, those people are representing your brand. So you need to kind of know what they're about and where they're going and how they're going to treat your people. And so I never take it for granted when people open up their stage to me, because I that is a big freaking deal. So if you're wanting to get into speaking, my biggest suggestion is to go to their event first, be there, be active, be engaged, and all that stuff. And that will get you a lot further in the application process or even just the opportunity process than if you're just, again, person on Instagram that or Facebook that is DMing them just like everybody else. So again, it's
Yeah.
that cutting through the noise is really what that in person can do. So to find those events, again, go to the website designers or business coaches or the other people who are collaborating or the mentors that you're wanting to speak on their stages. Get on their email list, wherever they're most active, get in there, because a lot of times like speaker applications are up for like a week, or like early birds are up for a really short amount of time. So those are some suggestions. There really isn't a good place that I've been able to find that like has aggregated like our
Hmm.
spaces events.
Hey, Jordan, there's a micro tool.
Everybody, oh my gosh. I get asked that all the time. And it's like, I am actually creating a tool that would make it easier for me to know all of those things. So that is exciting. But yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to manage and keep up with because of the speed at which, like, there definitely are speaker applications that were out for like literally a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like if you were on vacation, if you were like just in a launch, you wouldn't have seen it. And then there it is off and gone. And if you weren't on their email list, some people don't even put it on their social media. They only put it to their email list. So there's those things are very tricky. And people are like, oh my gosh, how are you getting all these things? And it's like, I'm paying attention to a lot. I have systems, right, in place, paying attention to a lot of things for me so I can, pursue. So yeah, it's a lot of following. It's a lot of, I would get on as many of those people's email lists as possible. And again, you can like set up systems and stuff to like tag keywords if you like want them to say event or conference or retreat or those sorts of things. And then have that go to a certain area for you to review.
Amazing. Okay, so something I noticed even in the beginning of that answer was it's really important for you to know where you're going, to have your own personal vision for your business, because it can be really easy to be like, oh, shiny object, I should do that event and that event and that event, and being very intentional with, well, what do I actually need this year? Like, do I need more clients or do I need more education? Do I want more collaboration? Do I want brand expansion this year? Do I want just student expansion? And whatever that is, like, you need to know, because that's going to guide the places that you choose to show up, right? Even knowing who to research and what you actually need. And I think that differentiates a very successful entrepreneur from those who are just kind of like riding on the wave of business and, oh, this came up. Yeah, I'll go to that. And I think knowing what you need and knowing what you want and having vision for where you're going for the year, for the decade, whatever it may be, should be the deciding factor of where you're putting your energy, right?
Yeah, because I'm definitely not saying go to every event.
No. Unless you are just an extrovert and you get your entire cup filled. I'm kind of an introverted extrovert. I love going to things and I also love being at home. So
yes.
I know you've talked about this and you just mentioned you're kind of working on something now, but one of the things I was really intrigued about goes along the lines of what you were just sharing, where when I read this, when I was reading your emails and whatever you were putting out, and you're speaking to this concept of getting booked as a speaker at events and really personalizing it using an AI, a micro tool, to be able to comb through and help you have a really authentic conversation, which I know for some people they're like, you used AI to comb so that you could come up with conversation topics, but still, you're just cutting the fluff. You were going to go do that research anyway, right?
Right.
But I feel like the same thing as a podcaster, I was listening to that, like, yes, this applies to any kind of platform, whether you want to be a guest on a show, a speaker on a stage. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and what you developed over there? Because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's so much noise that you really cannot just chuck things out there and think that that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
The days of just like sending a simple email or sending a simple DM, it's tough because there's just so much going on. I have so many lost conversations in my DMs. I don't even want to talk about it. So, but research goes such a long way. Like when I have somebody who, like, there's just a difference between when somebody will ask me to come on their podcast or speak on their stage and they have an idea of like kind of what they want me to talk about or what they think would be most helpful to their audience. That is more intriguing to me than just like a general opportunity, because like I don't know your audience, and so I need you to tell me what you think is best. Now, if I'm on the flip side pitching to be on someone else's podcast, then it's my job to try and connect those dots for them, because they may not, again, know who I am. And so I'm going to say, okay, here's what is going to do well for your people. Like, for example, I'm speaking, it got postponed because of the LA fires, but ROI Summit with Rachel Rogers was going to do in January. I think it's moving to June-ish. Originally she wanted to have, not she, but her team wanted to name my talk like $1 million systems, like very just whatever. And I was like, can I change that actually? Because like, I think, and not that they wouldn't know like what works for their audience, but I was like, like I actually want to name it the $1 million shortcut, the invisible systems that you don't know you need.
Hmm.
And before it was postponed, people had to register for breakouts, which was what my talk was. And my breakout was the second most registered session
Hmm.
after Jasmine Star. Okay, so Jasmine
Wow.
Star is way bigger than me, way bigger, has lots of like things. And so then for me to be able to have, and mine was the most registered, I think, in my breakout section. Hers was a different time frame or time zone. But it's like having that intuition and really paying attention to even language, right? So I didn't pull a shortcut out of my like I paid attention to her language and obviously what her people are drawn to and decided, okay, the word system, she doesn't actually say a lot. So she will say other words. And so I wanted to be able to mirror back her language to her people, which will then make people tune into me more than just a word that, is typical or expected. So yeah, I've created a lot of tools. I realized I was just looking at it yesterday and I was like, this is a problem. But one of the tools that I've created, or that's in the creation process, is called Keep Tabs On. And it is where essentially you can sign up for a bunch of people's newsletters, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places. And what it does is it creates a weekly digest of all of those places and letting you know what's going on in people's worlds. So that way, again, if you do see an opportunity to pitch or connect, or you're just gathering the data, then when the opportunity arises, you're not like, what's going on in her world? Like, let me go and listen to some podcasts and do this thing. It's like, no, like you've been like slowly getting to know what's happening with them and what their goals are. And then you're able to pitch and say, okay, I know how to connect your goals to my goals because I've been paying attention without having to be everywhere, without having to pay attention. Because it's a different problem now. You want to talk about 2014, 2016? You were on people's emails list and you went on a live a few times and you knew basically what was going on with them. Now people are in so many channels, you're listening to so many people. And so now we're getting into this realm of, okay, there's too much information. How do I distill it and aggregate it in a digestible way? And so that's what that tool does, because we're in just a different era, so to speak, of like the online space. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm able to speed read and I have some like different things that, again, I can digest that information fast myself, but even I'm hitting max capacity of paying attention to what I want to pay attention to. So that's really what that tool came about for.
My gosh, it's amazing. As a nerd who loves systems, can
Love
you
it.
give us some insight for me and for everybody else listening? How do you even go about creating those micro tools? Like, are you leveraging AI to be able to do that? I know you said you're listening over here to the fact that this is possible. Are we talking like as simple as we're creating a zap for this that's going to
Yeah.
comb words and put it in a certain fold? I'm like thinking very archaically, but is that what we're talking? Are we talking like, no, let's
Right.
move a few years down the timeline here, Kirsten?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it that way if you would like. That's a possibility.
That's a
And
choice, according
that's a
to
choice.
Glinda and Wicked.
I know, like that's like literally what I was like saying in my head. And we're in such an interesting time right now, Kirsten. We are like, it's even blowing my mind. And I wouldn't say I'm easily shocked or like
Wooed.
bedazzled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, wooed. So originally with these tools, I was going the traditional route of hiring a developer, paying thousands of dollars, and it taking a long time and a lot of like, I have a lot of developers that are not in my time zone, so I'm having to either wake up early or stay up late or do all these things to get these tools out there. And in about the last like month and a half, I was like, okay, I'm not a developer, but I really want to test out these AI coding tools that are out there. There are many of them. There's Lovable, there's Replit, there's Cursor, there's Bolt, I mean, so many.
Wow.
And yeah. And Lovable is the one that I've landed on because it's the most like natural language, meaning that you can say, hey, I want to build a calendar scheduler if you want to, and it will literally just start, like you'll see it physically. So you're chatting on the left, in normal language of like, hey, I want a calendar scheduler that also is integrated with Zoom. On the right hand side, you're seeing like code happen, but then all of a sudden it then flips and you see the UI version, which just means user interface. And you're literally physically seeing a calendar schedule over there. Then you can change the fonts and you can do all that stuff, right? The fun stuff. But literally, I'm talking over here and it's being built. I can physically see an app with my eyeballs on the right. Like, and there's a couple of tools. There's one that I built too called B-Roll Boo. And that one is where you are able to upload a B-roll video, which just basically is like a video of you working or a video of you walking your dog or like something basic. You then upload your sales page or just add the link to it and then choose a hook that you want to test. We generate the hook below and then it just exports to Canva for you to brand in your own design and then, ship off to schedule. And that tool took me 37 messages, which happens in a couple hours.
Wow.
What are we doing? What is happening? Like it is the things that are happening so fast. And like, what's cool is this tool Lovable. They just connected with Figma, which is a common design app that developers use or front-end developers use. They're now integrated with that. They're about to release dictation, which means I could be in my car. I could be at a baseball game. I could be doing all sorts of things, be talking in my phone, and the app is being built.
Yeah, that hurts my brain. That tickles places in my brain.
So it's just such a wild time because too, like normal people or people who aren't in like the online space or just general business have no clue. Right? They are not as tuned in about what's happening right now. And so it feels very 2014, 2016-y where, oh my gosh, like we can just all of a sudden make money on the internet, making courses and stuff. I feel that there's another loop here that we can get on the forefront of being able to create tools and stuff. Cause like there's apps I come up with all the time. My notes app on my phone is insane. Like I have allergies, like I have to be gluten-free. I have celiac, dairy, eggs, all sorts of stuff. And I have all these recipes on Instagram that I want to try, but like I have to like think and like do all the, what do they call replacements and stuff.
Or substitutions. Yeah.
Substitutions. Thank you. And like, I just want to create an app where it's like, okay, someone uploads a recipe and it just automatically creates a list of the substitutions. And then it creates a grocery list that then gets sent to my house manager. Like I can do that for myself. I don't even have to sell that to anybody. Like I can just have that be built. And guess what? Lovable, $50 a month for like, I think 250 messages, which you could build several apps.
Yeah, you said it took messages. What, 38 messages for one?
Yeah.
That sounds like a problem for me a little bit because I love stuff.
I'm creating a lot of problems.
Yeah. What did you do this week? I created 5 new apps and I'm not selling any of them. They were just for me. But hey, I know exactly how to organize our pantry. I know exactly what groceries to do auto placements for.
Yes.
We're golden. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That blows my mind. And I love this conversation so much. I love everything about what we've talked about. But I think what you just said, like we're on a totally new loop now where there's going to be opportunities. When ChatGPT came out, people were saying that. And I was over here like, what do you mean?
I know. Yeah,
because we have generative AI. Cool. I couldn't see the big picture. And now I'm starting to see it piece by piece. And I'm so excited. And also it's like really daunting too. Like how do we jump in there and leverage this and use this and know what we're doing and not just be a consumer, but also, step into that creator space. So I love hearing how you've used it and just some real life examples. And thank you so much for the price point, the website that I need to go to. I will send my husband your way when he's angry that I've created.
Blame me. It's okay.
He'll actually probably love it too because he loves systems and that's kind of his like,
oh my gosh,
that's what he loves to do as well. So it's amazing. I feel like I could talk to you. We should probably have you on again because I think you have so many different things that we could dive into. I'm dead serious. We should probably do a series. It would be really fun.
Here for it. Networking.
Where can people follow you if they want to be a part of all the things that you're throwing out there and all the micro tools you're creating and all the public speaking you're doing? What's the best place to connect with you?
All the shenanigans. So best place is Instagram. That's my jam. So at Systems Saved Me. I do really ridiculous reels. And I've added some carousels just to like be professional. And so that's the best place. But I also do have my podcast, System Saved Me, which I'm having some guest hosts come on, which is really fun. And my website, systemsaveme.com. Like those are kind of the three places I would probably say are the most up to date and relevant. Yeah, those
Cool.
are places.
Love it. Thank you so much. You are a treasure trove of knowledge and just really fun to talk to. It's no wonder you've gotten as far as you have because you know your stuff and it's fun to share it with you as well. So thanks for coming on, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for letting me just share some value, kick it, talk about some of my craziness and hopefully inspire you and others to play around because we're actually in a really cool time.
Yeah.
Really cool time.
Yeah, embrace it. Don't run away from it because there's a lot of opportunity there. So I think that's something I've learned from this for sure. I'm excited to dive into it more.
Hey, awesome. Love to hear it.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.